Uspap page 88. Advisory OPINI. This communication by the Appraisal Standards Board, ASB, does not establish new standards or interpret existing standards. Advisory opinions are issued to illustrate the applicability of appraisal standards in specific situations and to offer advice from the ASB for the resolution of appraisal issues and problems. Subject: use of the appraisal report options of Standards Rules 2-2, 8-2, and 10-2 application. Real property, personal property, intangible property. The issue. Standards Rules 2-2, 8-2, and 10-2 of the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, USPAP, offer two written appraisal report options. What are appropriate circumstances for the use of these options? Advice from the ASB on the issue. Relevant USPAP and advisory references. Under Standards Rules 2-2, 8-2, and 10-2, an appraiser may communicate the results of an appraisal in one of two options. Appraisal Report, Standards Rules 2-2, 8-2, and 10-2, or Restricted Appraisal Report, Standards Rules 2-2, B, 8-2, B, and 10-2, B. Deciding which written report option to use. When the intended users include parties other than the client, an appraisal report must be provided. When the client the only intended user, a restricted appraisal report may be provided. A restricted appraisal report must state a prominent use restriction that limits use of the report to the client and warns that the rationale for how the appraiser arrived at the opinions and conclusions set forth in the report may not be understood properly without additional formation in the appraiser's work file. As with other business decisions that involve the application of USPAP, the existence of appraisal report options implies a dialogue between the appraiser and the client to define the appraisal problem prior to reaching agreement to perform an assignment. Part of that dialogue is a decision on which report option is appropriate for e-assignment. This dialogue, decision process can be applied to a single assignment or to a series of assignments or formed by an appraiser for the same client. In most situations, the client may decide which report option is appropriate for the assignment. E-appraiser may agree to provide the report option suggested by the client as long as the report option is consistent with the intended use and intended users of the appraisal. Decision to use the restricted appraisal report is absolute because the minimum level of information required in a restricted appraisal report is not designed to address the needs of any third party. Users. When an appraiser uses the restricted appraisal report option, a prominent notice to any reader must be provided. This prominent use restriction use of the report to the client and warns that the rationale for how the appraiser arrived at the opinions and conclusions set forth in the report may not be understood properly without additional information in the appraiser's KFILE. The restricted appraisal report may be useful when the client is the only intended user of the appraiser's opinions and conclusions set forth in the report. The client understands the limited utility of this option. The intended use of the appraisal warrants restricted disclosure about the appraisal process steps completed. Assignment. And client, the only intended user, does not need the level of information required in an appraisal report. Advisory opinion focuses on the use of the appraisal report options and should be read in conjunction with ORI Opinion 11, which focuses on the content of the appraisal report options of Standards 2, 8, and 10. In E-Standards Rules 2-2, 8-2, and 10-2. See also Related Advisory Opinion 11, Content of the Appraisal Report Options 2, 8-2, and 10-2. Of Standards Rules Advisory Opinions 2018-2019 edition. The Appraisal Foundation SES.